Desperate, they waited. Then the Deathworlders of Earth arrived. Elder Observer Ton watched them through the wide observation window, his 4 eyes adjusting slowly to the dim light. Once those stars had been busy with traffic, cargo lanes glowing, communication relays flashing, ships arriving and leaving every hour. Now there was nothing, just darkness and distant light, uncaring and still. Silence had become their enemy. Behind him, the station hummed weakly. Power systems worked at reduced capacity. Life support was stable for now, but only because it had been stripped down to the minimum needed to survive. Comfort, redundancy, and safety margins had all been sacrificed weeks ago. The Coalition was dying, not suddenly but slowly. They had not expected this. None of them had. The Coalition had been built by species who valued stability above all else. Their worlds were calm, their climates predictable, their technologies refined over thousands of peaceful cycles. Problems were rare, and when they appeared, they were solved carefully and perfectly. But perfection had failed them. The star system they now sheltered in had begun to decay. No single disaster caused it. Instead, small failures had stacked on top of one another, minor orbital shifts, energy grid imbalances, slow environmental instability. Each issue alone was manageable. Together, they became unstoppable. Their systems had never been designed for this kind of chaos. Ton turned from the window and moved slowly toward the council chamber. His movements were careful. Energy conservation was now a habit shared by all. Inside the chamber, representatives of 7 species waited. Some sat, some floated, some rested within life support frames filled with pale mist. All looked exhausted in their own way. The High Coordinator, a thin being of crystal and light, spoke first. "Status report," it said, its voice calm but dimmer than before. Ton inclined his head. "Long-range rescue beacons remain unanswered. Our nearest allied systems are experiencing similar failures. No external aid is expected." A low sound passed through the chamber, not panic, but something worse. Acceptance. "How long?" asked Representative Shun, her voice tight. "At current consumption levels," Ton replied, "the station will remain viable for approximately 83 cycles. After that, life support degradation becomes irreversible." Silence followed. They had already heard this estimate before. It never improved. The High Coordinator shifted its glow slightly. "Then we must consider unconventional options." Several representatives reacted at once. "You mean them?" Shun said. "Yes," the coordinator replied. "The species from the unstable system, Sol 3. Ton felt his chest tighten. He had reviewed the files, all of them had. "Earth," he said quietly. The word carried weight. Earth was classified as a death world, a planet with violent weather, unstable geology, aggressive native life, and constant environmental danger. Species that evolved there should not have survived, according to Coalition models. But they had. Humans. Primitive by Coalition standards. Emotion-driven. Loud, unpredictable. Their technology was functional but inelegant. Their ships lacked the graceful efficiency the Coalition valued. And yet they were still alive. "They are newly contacted," Shun said. "Their understanding of interstellar systems is limited. Their technology is inferior. Why would we trust them with a crisis we ourselves cannot solve?" The coordinator responded gently. "Because what we cannot solve, they may endure." That word echoed in the chamber. Endure. Ton remembered the human briefing footage. Humans working in extreme heat, extreme cold, low oxygen, high gravity. Humans repairing machines while alarms screamed. Humans living with constant risk as if it were normal. Their world had never been stable. Their species had never known peace with nature. They adapted instead. "Our models show a 92% chance they will refuse," another representative said. "The remaining probability predicts failure or misunderstanding." Ton spoke before he could stop himself. "There is also a chance they will answer." All eyes turned toward him. "Based on what?" Shun asked. Ton hesitated, then answered honestly. "Based on their history, when faced with disasters, humans do not wait for perfect solutions, they act." The chamber fell quiet again. Finally, the High Coordinator spoke. "Prepare the final beacon." Shun's posture stiffened. "This will reveal our condition, our weakness." "Yes," the Coordinator replied, "but secrecy will not save us." Ton stepped forward. "I will oversee the transmission." He moved to the control platform, his hands steady despite the pressure building inside him. This beacon would be different, not polished, not diplomatic. It would be honest. A request, not a demand. As systems powered up, he reviewed the message one last time. Coalition refuge system compromised. Cascading failures ongoing, requesting assistance. Data attached. Any response welcome, no promises, no expectations. He activated the signal. The beacon vanished into the dark, racing toward a yellow star and a blue world that should never have produced spacefaring life. The chamber waited. Minutes passed. Then hours. No one spoke. No one moved. Hope was a dangerous thing. Eventually, the council dispersed. There was nothing more to do. Ton returned to the observation window. The stars remained silent. He wondered if humans would even understand the message, if they would care, if they would see the coalition as worth saving or simply another failure too far away to matter. Behind him, the station lights dimmed slightly as another non-essential system shut down. Time was running out. Far away, on a planet filled with storms and noise, a signal arrived. And for the first time in many cycles, the silence was about to be broken. At the deep space listening array, far from the crowded cities, Dr. Lena Morales leaned back in her chair and rubbed her tired eyes. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of machines and the distant sound of wind outside the facility. She had been awake for almost 18 hours, reviewing routine signal noise and automated reports. Then the alert appeared. It was not loud, not dramatic. Just a soft chime and a blinking line of text. Unidentified extrasolar transmission, priority unknown. Lena straightened instantly. Unidentified did not mean hostile. It meant rare. She leaned forward, fingers moving quickly across the console. The signal was structured, layered with data packets, compression systems, and translation markers far more advanced than any human-made signal she had ever seen. Her breath caught. "This is not a probe," she whispered. "This is a request." Within minutes, the night crew was fully awake. Screens filled with decoded fragments, star charts, system diagnostics, environmental data, energy flow maps. Whoever sent this was not saying hello. They were asking for help. By morning, the message had reached people far above Lena's pay grade. In a quiet conference room thousands of kilometers away, representatives from Earth's major space agencies, governments, and scientific groups sat around a long table. No cameras, no press, no speeches. Just facts. The holographic display showed a fragile star system slowly drifting toward failure. "This coalition," said Director Han of the International Space Council, "is technologically ahead of us in almost every way." A scientist nodded. "Their energy systems are cleaner. Their materials science is beyond ours. Their models are precise." "Then why are they failing?" someone asked. No one answered right away. Dr. Patel, an engineer with gray hair and tired eyes, finally spoke. "Because their systems assume stability, ours don't." Several heads turned toward him. "Our technology is ugly," Patel continued calmly. "It breaks, we expect it to break, so we build backups and backups for the backups, and then we teach people how to fix things when all of that fails." He gestured at the display. "They built perfection, we built survival." Silence followed. Director Han exhaled slowly. "Helping them would stretch our resources. We are still struggling on our own planet." "Yes," Patel said, "but this is not about charity. This is about learning and proving something." "What?" Han asked. "That chaos is not the end," Patel replied. "It's just another environment." The room grew thoughtful. No one spoke about fear, but it was there. Fear of embarrassment, fear of failure, fear of being judged by beings older and more advanced. And fear of success. Finally, Director Han nodded. "Send a response." Back at the listening array, Lena watched the outgoing transmission with held breath. It was not polished, not formal, it was short. "Signal received, data understood, we are reviewing, stand by." That message traveled across impossible distance. On the Kalari refuge station, Ton was present when the alert sounded, a response. For a moment, he did not trust his senses. "Confirm source," he said sharply. "Confirmed," the system replied. "Origin, Sol 3, species, human." The council chamber filled again, faster than it had in many cycles. Representatives entered with renewed energy and visible tension. "They answered," Shun said, disbelief in her voice. "Already." "They did not refuse," another added. "They did not demand compensation." The High Coordinator glowed slightly brighter. "What did they say?" Ton read the message aloud. When he finished, confusion spread through the chamber. "That is all?" Shun asked. "No conditions, no questions?" "They asked us to wait," Ton said, "which means they are thinking." That alone was unsettling. Human thinking according to the files was not always predictable. Hours passed, then more. The station continued its slow decline. Systems adjusted automatically. Crews worked quietly. Everyone watched the stars. Then the second message arrived. This one was longer. Humans requested full access to system logs, failure histories, environmental data, and infrastructure layouts. Not summaries, everything. They want raw data, Shun said. Even corrupted files. Yes, Tan replied, especially corrupted files. Permission was granted. As the data flowed toward Earth, some council members began to worry. We are exposing our weaknesses, one said. We already have no strength left to hide, the coordinator replied. On Earth, the data caused confusion and excitement. Engineers stared at error logs that spanned decades. Scientists argued over environmental models that refused to behave logically. Analysts frowned at systems that failed without clear cause. This doesn't make sense, someone muttered. Patel shook his head. It makes perfect sense. They are trying to force order onto a system that doesn't want it. So what do we do? Lena asked quietly. Patel smiled, tired but sharp. We stop fighting the system, we ride it. Within days, teams formed across Earth. Not just space agencies, but disaster response experts, climate scientists, civil engineers, logistics planners, and even people who specialized in repairing aging infrastructure. People who knew failure. They worked without sleep, passing ideas freely, arguing loudly, testing models that broke and rebuilding them again. And slowly something emerged, not a perfect fix, a way to slow the collapse, a way to buy time. The next message sent to the coalition was longer and stranger. It did not contain a solution. It contained questions. What systems can fail without killing life support? What structures can be dismantled to reduce load? Where can inefficiency be traded for stability? Shun stared at the message. They are asking us to let things break. Yes, Tan said softly, on purpose. The idea was terrifying. Coalition culture avoided failure at all costs. A broken system meant shame. Error meant redesign from the ground up. Humans saw it differently. Failure was information. They are not offering salvation, Shun said. They are offering survival. The coordinator spoke with calm certainty. That may be enough. As instructions followed, coalition engineers hesitated, then complied. Non-essential systems were shut down entirely. Elegant but fragile structures were replaced with simpler, stronger configurations. Power was rerouted manually. The station groaned. Lights flickered, but it did not fall. Tan watched reports scroll across his console. For the first time in many cycles, the decline slowed. Only slightly, but enough to matter. Another message arrived from Earth. We are sending observers, not to lead, to assist. Observers, not commanders. That choice spread unease and respect. How long until arrival? Shun asked. Tan checked the trajectory data. Sooner than expected, he said. Across the chamber, hope stirred carefully like something long unused. They were still desperate, but now they were no longer alone. And the galaxy was about to see what happened when beings shaped by chaos stepped into a fragile, perfect world. It slipped out of folded space at the edge of the system, its hull dark and scarred, covered in patchwork plates of different colors and materials. Its shape was uneven, more practical than beautiful. Compared to coalition vessels, it looked unfinished, yet it moved with steady confidence. On the Kalari refuge station, alarms sounded softly, not warnings but notifications. A foreign ship had entered controlled space. Tan stood at the main observation platform as sensor data streamed in. The human vessel was smaller than expected but dense. Its energy output was irregular but strong. They came alone, Shun said, standing beside him. No escort. Tan studied the readings. They did not come to impress. The docking request arrived seconds later. It was simple. Request permission to dock. Human assistance team aboard. Permission was granted. As the ship aligned with the station, many coalition members gathered to watch through windows and screens. Some felt fear, others curiosity, most felt disbelief. The docking clamps engaged with a heavy, solid sound that echoed through the station. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the airlock opened. The first human stepped through. She was small compared to many coalition species. She wore a thick, worn suit marked with symbols and scratches. Her helmet came off, revealing a face lined with fatigue but sharp with focus. She looked around slowly, eyes taking in everything. Lena Morales, she said into a translator clipped to her collar. Systems engineer. Thank you for having us. Her voice was calm. Behind her came others, humans of different shapes and sizes, carrying tools, tablets, and equipment cases. None looked afraid, none looked impressed. They looked ready. Shun leaned closer to Tan and whispered, "They walk like they expect things to fall apart." Tan watched carefully. Perhaps because they usually do. Formal greetings were brief. Humans did not waste time on ceremony. Once basic protocols were complete, Lena spoke again. "Show us the worst problem first," she said. The request surprised the council. "The worst?" Shun asked. "Not the most urgent," Lena nodded. "Same thing usually." They were led into the core engineering sectors, where walls showed signs of stress and energy conduits ran hot. Human eyes moved constantly, scanning, measuring, listening. One human placed a hand on a vibrating panel and frowned. "That shouldn't be humming like that," a coalition engineer replied, confused. "It is within acceptable parameters." The human shook his head. "Acceptable isn't safe." Within minutes, humans were asking questions faster than translators could keep up. "Why is this system isolated?" "We have never allowed those failures to overlap," one said. Lena stopped walking and turned to face him. "That's the problem, they don't ask permission." The humans spread out through the station, not waiting for full approval on every step. They tagged systems, marked stress points, and created lists that grew longer by the minute. Instead of shutting down systems cleanly, they tested what happened when limits were pushed slightly. Coalition leaders watched with growing discomfort. "They are risking damage," Shun said. "No," Tan replied. "They are measuring it." In one sector, a human team discovered a power loop that fed into itself, slowly increasing instability. "This was designed to optimize efficiency," a coalition engineer explained. A human laughed softly. "Yeah, we've done that before, always ends badly." They broke the loop. Efficiency dropped, stability increased. Throughout the station, similar changes followed. Systems became simpler, redundant, less elegant, but stronger. The humans worked in shifts that ignored coalition schedules. When one team rested, another took over. They ate quickly, slept anywhere, and shared information constantly. No hierarchy was obvious. They argued openly, but listened carefully. Tan observed them from a distance, fascinated. "Why do they not assign a single leader?" he asked Lena during a brief pause. She smiled faintly. "We tried that once. Turns out problems don't care who's in charge." Hours turned into days. The station still struggled. Failures still occurred, but now they were expected. Human teams responded calmly, adjusting systems on the fly, rerouting power manually, sealing off sections without panic. Coalition crews began to follow their lead. One young engineer hesitated as an alert sounded. "This system is failing," a human beside her shrugged. "Yeah, that one does that. Watch." He adjusted a control, bypassed a relay, and the failure stabilized into a controlled inefficiency. The engineer stared. "You planned for this?" The human nodded. "We planned for things to go wrong." Word spread quickly. Not all reactions were positive. Some coalition elders were deeply disturbed. "They treat failure as normal," one said. "This thinking is dangerous." Tan responded carefully. "Ignoring failure has brought us here." The turning point came during a system-wide stress event. An energy fluctuation rippled through the station, stronger than before. Lights dimmed. Environmental controls wavered. Coalition protocols would have initiated full shutdowns. Humans did the opposite. "Hold," Lena said calmly. "Let it shake." They manually balanced loads, accepting temporary discomfort to prevent catastrophic collapse. The station survived. Barely, but it survived. When the system stabilized, silence filled the control room. Shun looked at the human team, her expression changed. "You trusted the station to endure," she said. Lena nodded. "Because that's what it's doing already." Later, Tan stood with Lena near the observation window. The stars still looked distant and cold. "You risked yourselves," Tan said. "You did not have to." Lena looked tired, but her eyes were steady. "Where we come from, if you wait for safety, you wait forever." She gestured at the station. "You built a beautiful thing, but beautiful things break. Ugly ones keep going." Tan considered this. "They will remember you," he said, "whether we survive or not." Lena shook her head. "That's not why we came." "Then why?" he asked. She smiled slightly. "Because someone asked." The station continued to hum, uneven, imperfect, but alive. For the first time since the crisis began, hope did not feel fragile. It felt stubborn. And that, Tan realized, was the most human thing of all. But across the nearby systems, data streams began to change. Long-range sensors noticed that the collapse of the Kalari refuge system had slowed. Energy loss curves flattened. Environmental failure predictions shifted. Something was different. On worlds far away, analysts stared at their screens in confusion. "That system should already be gone," one said. "It's not stabilizing," another replied. "It's resisting." The galaxy took notice. On the Kalari refuge station, life had changed. The station was no longer calm and silent. It was busy, loud by coalition standards. Human voices echoed through halls once reserved for careful movement. Tools lay openly on work surfaces. Sections were marked with bright symbols and handwritten notes translated into many languages. Efficiency had dropped. Survivability had risen. Tan walked through one of the habitation rings, observing the changes. Coalition residents now wore utility harnesses and learned basic repair skills. Human engineers taught short lessons in hallways, explaining how to read stress indicators and respond to alerts. "Do not wait for permission," a human technician said to a group of coalition workers. "If you see something wrong, say it. If you can fix it, fix it." This idea was shocking to many. Coalition culture valued clear authority and perfect planning. Action without approval had once been unthinkable. Now it was encouraged. Shun watched one of these sessions with mixed emotions. "They are changing us," she said to Tan. "Yes," he replied, "and we are still alive because of it." Not everyone agreed. In a closed council meeting, several elders expressed concern. "Our identity is dissolving," one said. "We were builders of perfection, now we accept flaws." "Perfection did not save us," Tan replied calmly. "Adaptation might." The debate ended without resolution. Outside the station, human ships began to arrive more frequently. Not warships, not large fleets, utility vessels, cargo ships. Old transports refitted for long missions. They brought spare parts, tools, modular systems, and more people, engineers, medics, planners, and observers. None came as heroes. They came as workers. Among them was Dr. Patel, whose calm presence quickly became familiar in the command sectors. He spent long hours reviewing data with coalition scientists, translating not just language but mindset. "You don't need to control every variable," he explained gently. "You need to survive the ones you can't." Across the galaxy, debates began. On the world of Silent Prime, a council session turned heated. "Why are humans involved at all?" one representative demanded. "They are unstable, emotional," another replied, "yet the system still exists." "They are dangerous," the first insisted. "Yes," the second agreed, "dangerous to old assumptions." Observation drones were dispatched. Data feeds were shared quietly. No one wanted to admit curiosity, but curiosity spread. Back on the station, a new challenge emerged. The star itself had begun to fluctuate unpredictably. Radiation levels rose and fell without pattern. Coalition models failed to predict it. This time, even humans paused. Lena stood in the analysis room, staring at the data. "This isn't just infrastructure," she said. "This is environmental chaos on a scale we can't control." Shun felt fear rise again. "Then we are finished." "No," Lena replied softly. "Then we adapt again." The solution humans proposed was radical. Instead of trying to shield the entire station equally, they suggested focusing protection on critical zones and allowing non-essential areas to fluctuate. "You want us to accept exposure?" an elder asked. "I want you to accept reality," Lena answered. "You can't save everything, choose what matters most." The choice was painful. Sections were sealed off. Habitation areas were condensed. Some comforts were abandoned, but life support stabilized. Coalition citizens struggled with the emotional cost. Humans stayed with them, explaining each decision, listening to concerns, offering reassurance without false promises. "We're not here to pretend it's easy," Patel said during one assembly. "We're here to make sure tomorrow exists." That phrase spread through the station. Tomorrow exists. When a secondary energy grid failed unexpectedly, coalition crews reacted before human teams arrived. They improvised repairs, rerouted systems, and stabilized the failure. Humans arrived to find the crisis already under control. Lena smiled. "See, you're learning." Tan observed this moment closely. "They no longer wait," he said quietly. "No," Lena agreed. "They're becoming resilient." Across the galaxy, reports became impossible to ignore. The Kalari system was still damaged, still unstable, but it was alive. "This is not recovery," an analyst said during a galactic broadcast review. "This is endurance." and endurance was unfamiliar. Some species began sending quiet messages to Earth, not requests, questions. How do humans train for chaos? How do they live with constant risk? How do they continue without certainty? Earth responded not with doctrine but with stories, stories of floods and storms, of rebuilding after failure, of systems breaking and people fixing them with limited tools and stubborn hope. These stories spread faster than data. On the station, Tan stood once more at the observation window. This time he did not feel alone. The stars still did not care, but the galaxy did. And it was watching humans not as conquerors but as teachers of survival. The crisis was not over, but something irreversible had begun. The belief that perfection was strength had cracked, and in its place something rougher and stronger was growing. No alarms screamed. No lights flashed red. The system simply informed them that something had changed. Tan was reviewing stability reports when the message appeared on his console. Primary orbital anchor, degrading faster than projected. He stared at the words for several seconds. Then he stood. Within minutes, the command sector filled with people, coalition leaders, human engineers, analysts, and observers from nearby systems. The room buzzed with quiet tension. Lena stood near the center display, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the data. "This anchor keeps the station aligned," Shun said. "If it fails, orbital drift will increase." "And then?" asked one of the observers. Lena answered calmly. "Then everything gets harder: power routing, radiation shielding, docking, life support balance." "How long do we have?" Tan asked. Lena took a breath. "Best estimate, 2 cycles before failure becomes uncontrolled." Silence spread through the room. The orbital anchor was old, designed to last forever under stable conditions. It had never been meant to adjust continuously. Coalition engineers had already attempted repairs. Perfect repairs, clean solutions. They had failed. One elder spoke, voice tight. "Can humans fix it?" Lena did not answer right away. "We can't fix it the way it was built," she said finally. "But we can change how it's used." The display shifted. A new model appeared, rough, simplified, filled with redundancies and manual overrides. "This will reduce precision," she continued. "The station won't sit perfectly anymore. That imperfection will cause stress," the elder said. "Yes," Lena replied. "But it will be survivable stress." The room divided instantly. "This risks destabilizing everything," one representative argued. "Doing nothing guarantees failure," Patel replied quietly. Tan watched the debate carefully. This moment felt different from the others. This was not about learning, this was about trust. Finally, Shun turned to Tan. "What do you think?" Tan felt the weight of the question. He remembered the silence before Earth answered. The first human ship, the messy repairs that worked when perfection failed. "I think," he said slowly, "that survival is no longer about avoiding mistakes. It is about choosing which ones we can live with." Approval was granted. Work began immediately. Human teams prepared external stabilization modules, ugly, heavy devices designed to absorb stress instead of resisting it. Coalition crews assisted, following human instructions without hesitation. Outside the station, human ships moved carefully around the anchor structure. No heroic maneuvers, no risks taken for pride, just steady work. Inside, tension grew. Observers from other systems watched the operation live. This was no longer a private crisis. "This is reckless," one distant council member said through a secure channel. "This is honest," another replied. As the modules were attached, the station began to shift slightly. Gravity fluctuated, floors felt uneven. Some coalition citizens panicked. Humans moved among them, explaining, calming, staying present. "This feeling is expected," a human medic said gently. "It means the system is adjusting, not failing." Then the real test came. The anchor reached a critical stress point. All models predicted one of 2 outcomes: stabilization or rapid decline. Lena stood in the control sector, hands resting on the console. Her voice remained steady. "Reduce precision lock," she said. "Increase tolerance range." "That will increase drift," a coalition engineer warned. "Do it anyway," she replied. The station groaned, not in alarm, but in response. Then the readings shifted. Stress dropped, not to safe levels, but to survivable ones. A quiet sound spread through the room, not cheering, not celebration, relief. The anchor did not fail, it changed. Tan let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. "We're still here," Shun whispered. "Yes," Patel said softly, "and now we know how to stay." Across the galaxy, reactions were immediate. They accepted instability, one analyst said in disbelief. They embraced it, another corrected. Messages began arriving at Earth, not questions anymore, requests. Can you help us review our systems? Can you teach us how to plan for failure? Can you show us what we missed? Earth did not answer all at once. Humans were careful. We're not a solution, Director Han said during a quiet briefing. We're a method. On the station, life slowly adjusted to the new normal. The floors were never perfectly level. Power levels fluctuated slightly. Schedules became flexible, but people stopped fearing every alert. Coalition children watched humans repair systems and began asking questions. Engineers started sharing ideas across species lines. Mistakes were discussed openly instead of hidden. One evening cycle, Tan walked with Lena along a viewing corridor. "You changed us," he said. She shook her head. "You changed yourselves. You made it possible," he replied. Lena smiled faintly. "You were brave enough to let go of perfect." They stopped near the window. The stars were still distant, but now they felt less hostile. Later, a formal message was broadcast across known space. Not from Earth, from the Coalition. The Kalari system remains unstable. We are not saved, but we endure. With human assistance, we have learned that survival does not require perfection, only persistence. The message spread quickly, and for the first time, humanity was not feared for its weapons or ambition. It was respected for something stranger, its refusal to give up. The crisis was not over, but the galaxy now understood something important. When humans arrived, they did not bring miracles, they brought methods. And that was enough. Tan noticed it while walking through the engineering ring. A system alert chimed softly, then went silent. No rush followed. No emergency teams arrived. Instead, a small group of Coalition engineers gathered calmly, reviewed the readings, and began working. No humans were present. Tan stopped and watched. They spoke openly, questioning assumptions, testing ideas, adjusting systems without fear. One engineer made a mistake, corrected it, and explained what she had learned. No blame followed. The system stabilized. Tan felt something tighten in his chest. This was new. For many cycles, humans had been everywhere, repairing, advising, teaching. Now they were stepping back. Lena stood in the command sector later that cycle, watching the same reports. "They didn't call us," she said. Patel smiled. "Good." Shun overheard them and frowned. "Are you leaving?" "Not yet," Lena replied. "But soon we won't be needed like before." The idea unsettled some Coalition leaders. "You are withdrawing support?" one elder asked during a council session. "No," Patel said calmly. "We're transferring responsibility." The difference mattered. Human teams began focusing less on direct repairs and more on training. Workshops replaced emergency responses. Humans asked Coalition crews to lead simulations, make decisions, and even fail safely. "Failure here is learning," Lena explained. "Better now than later." Across the station, signs appeared, not official notices, but reminders written in simple words. If it breaks, don't panic. Ask why not who. Survive first. Improve later. These ideas spread faster than technology. Coalition culture shifted in small ways. Titles mattered less. Questions mattered more. People spoke up when something felt wrong. Humans encouraged disagreement. "If everyone agrees too fast," Patel said during a session, "someone's not thinking." Observers from other systems noticed this change too. They saw humans doing less but achieving more. A delegation from the Silent Prime arrived, cautious and curious. They expected demonstrations of advanced tools. Instead, they were shown workshops. "Why are your people not fixing everything?" one delegate asked. Lena answered simply, "Because if we do, they won't know how." The delegation watched a Coalition crew handle a complex system fluctuation on their own. It was messy, slow, but successful. The delegates exchanged looks. "This is transferable," one said quietly. Back on Earth, reports caused debate. "Are we spreading instability?" one official asked. "No," Director Han replied. "We're spreading resilience." The next test came sooner than expected. A distant Allied station, inspired by Kalari's reports, attempted human-style adaptations without guidance. Their systems destabilized faster than anticipated. Panic spread. Calls flooded in, not to humans first, but to Kalari. Tan stood before the council, surprised. "They are asking us for help," Shun said. "We are not fully stable ourselves," an elder protested. "No," Tan agreed, "but we understand the method now." Human advisors remained silent. This was intentional. Coalition engineers organized response teams. They reviewed data, identified critical systems, and advised the distant station to simplify, not optimize. The advice worked. Barely. When the crisis ended, a message arrived from the Allied station. "We endured, thank you." Ton turned to Lena. "You didn't intervene." She smiled softly. "You didn't need us." That moment changed everything. Humans were no longer the center, they were the foundation. Across the galaxy, training exchanges began, not human-led missions, but shared resilience programs. Humans participated as equals, not authorities. Stories replaced instructions. Failures were shared openly. One story became famous, the story of the first anchor adjustment, not as a triumph, but as a lesson. Perfection had been released. In its place stood something stronger. During a quiet evening cycle, Tan and Patel sat near the observation window. "You never tried to control us," Tan said. Patel chuckled. "We can't even control ourselves." "Then why did you help?" Patel thought for a moment. "Because we've been where you are. And someone once helped us not by fixing things, but by staying." Tan absorbed this. Later, a final human message was prepared, not a farewell, but a transition. Human support teams will remain available, but will no longer lead operations. You are capable. You always were. The station responded with a message of its own. "We are no longer waiting. We are working." As human ships slowly prepared to depart, there was no ceremony, no sadness, only quiet respect. Coalition crews continued their routines, adjusting systems, planning futures that were no longer based on certainty, but on confidence. The galaxy was changing, not because humans conquered it, but because they showed it how to stand after falling. The crisis still existed. But fear no longer ruled, and that was the greatest thing humans left behind. Tan stood on the main observation deck, watching the human vessels align for departure. They were not many, just a handful of worn ships marked by repairs and mismatched panels. They looked small against the endless stars, but they carried something far larger than technology. They carried change. Around Tan, coalition citizens gathered quietly. Engineers, medics, elders. Young ones who had grown up during the crisis and now treated alarms like normal sounds instead of signs of doom. No one spoke much. This was not a farewell filled with sadness. It was one filled with understanding. Shun joined Tan, her posture calm in a way it had never been before. "The systems are holding," she said. "Yes," Tan replied. "Not perfectly," she smiled slightly. "Good." That word still felt strange, but it felt right. In the command sector, Lena Morales stood with Dr. Patel reviewing final reports. Human teams had already handed over all control. Their role was complete. "They don't need us anymore," Lena said quietly. Patel nodded. "That was always the goal." A junior human engineer nearby looked uncertain. "What if something goes wrong after we leave?" Patel answered gently. "Something will, and they'll handle it." The departure message was simple. "Human assistance teams disengaging. We remain reachable. Thank you for trusting us." The Coalition's reply came almost instantly. "Thank you for teaching us how to trust ourselves." As the ships began to move, the station's external lights dimmed in respect, a Coalition gesture once reserved for historic moments. The humans noticed. Lena watched the station grow smaller on the display. "I didn't expect that." Patel smiled. "They learned faster than most." As the human ships entered folded space and vanished, the stars returned to their usual quiet. But this time the silence felt different. It was not empty. Across the galaxy, reactions followed quickly. Observers who had once doubted humans now studied the data openly. The Kalari system was still unstable, still imperfect, but it was alive. "It should not be possible," one analyst said during a public forum. Another replied, "Then our definition of possible was wrong." Records were updated. Earth's classification changed. No longer just a death world, it became something new. A resilience world. On Cylon Prime, the Council voted to revise its engineering doctrines. Other systems followed. Training programs were rewritten. Failure simulations were introduced for the first time in galactic history, not because humans demanded it, because others asked for it. On the Kalari Refuge Station, life moved forward. Tan returned to his duties, now less about observing decline and more about guiding growth. Shun led adaptive planning councils. Young engineers proposed ideas without fear of punishment. One day, a minor system failed unexpectedly. Tan watched from a distance. The crew responded. They adapted. They fixed it. Later, Tan stood once more at the observation window. He remembered the silence from before. The waiting. The fear, desperate they had waited, and humans had arrived not with answers but with a way forward. A message arrived from Earth weeks later, not official, not formal, just a short note from Lena, "You're doing well." "We knew you would," Tan replied simply. "So are you." He paused, then added, "The stars speak differently now." On Earth, life continued as it always had: storms, problems, noise, arguments, repairs. Humans barely noticed the change they had caused. They returned to their own struggles. But sometimes, when a distant signal arrived asking for help, the response was no longer uncertain. The galaxy had learned something important. When perfection failed, when systems broke, when certainty vanished. You did not wait for silence to end. You acted, and if the problem seemed impossible, you called the Deathworlders of Earth, not because they were the strongest, but because they had learned how to endure.